Smoke still floated over the empty field when Darren stepped out of the transport. The battle had ended hours ago, but the ground still felt heavy, as if the air remembered every sound and every fear. Darren was a mechanic, not a soldier, yet he had seen enough broken machines and broken places in his life to know when something was wrong. This battlefield felt too quiet, too lonely. He walked carefully, checking for any remaining dangers. His team spread out behind him, scanning the area for survivors. They expected to find damaged drones or abandoned weapons, maybe even a lost soldier. But none of them expected to find life. Darren heard it first, a soft, weak sound. It was not human. It was not metallic. It sounded like a creature trying to breathe through pain. He stopped walking and raised his hand to signal the others. Everyone froze. The sound came again, a little louder this time. Darren followed it, moving slowly, pushing aside broken panels and scorched metal pieces. Then he saw it. A large alien creature lay half-buried under a fallen carrier shell. Its skin was thick and dark, patched with armored plates. Its long tail twitched weakly. Its breathing was rough and uneven. Even with dirt covering half its face, Darren recognized the shape. It was a war dog. A real alien war dog. His team gasped behind him. Everyone knew what these creatures were used for. They were trained for battle by alien armies, fast and strong, feared by almost every species. But this one looked nothing like a dangerous beast. It looked tired. It looked hurt. It looked abandoned. Careful, one of the medics whispered. They attack without warning. Darren did not feel fear. For a moment he felt only pity. He had worked with many machines, broken ones, damaged ones, left behind when they stopped being useful. He knew the feeling of being thrown aside. As strange as it was, this creature reminded him of that. He stepped closer. The war dog lifted its head slightly, its eyes opening just enough to see him. There was no anger in those eyes, no threat. Only confusion and pain. It tried to growl, but its voice was too weak, sounding more like a cry than a warning. "It's scared," Darren said softly. His team did not understand how he could tell, but Darren felt it. The creature was frightened, not aggressive. It had been left here by its own army, forgotten in the chaos. No one returned for it. "We should move back," another teammate said. "It can still be dangerous." Darren shook his head. Something inside him refused to walk away. If they left this creature, it would die here alone. He couldn't let that happen. Not when it stared at him with those tired eyes. He crouched low so the war dog could see him better. He kept his hands open and visible. He spoke in a slow, calm voice, even though he knew the creature probably didn't understand his words. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you," he murmured. "Just breathe. We'll get you out." The war dog blinked, its chest rising and falling with effort. Darren reached out carefully and touched the edge of the debris. The creature flinched, but it did not bite, did not attack. It simply watched him. His team exchanged uneasy looks. They had never seen a human get so close to a war dog without getting ripped apart. But this one was different now. It didn't act like a soldier's weapon. It acted like something fighting to live. Darren studied the debris piled on it. The weight was heavy but not impossible to move. If they worked together, they could free it without hurting it more. "We lift this off," Darren said firmly. "Slow and steady." "You want to save it?" someone asked, shocked. "It's alive," Darren answered. "That's enough." His voice left no room for argument. The team moved reluctantly into position. They carefully placed the lifting rods under the broken carrier shell. Darren stayed near the creature's head, speaking to it quietly as if his words could reduce its fear. When the team lifted the debris, the war dog let out a soft, pained sound. But it did not lash out. It trusted Darren's presence just enough to hold still. Once the heavy metal was removed, the medics checked its wounds. They were deep but treatable. "Can it move?" Darren asked. The medics shook their heads. "Not by itself. We'll have to carry it." "Then we carry it," Darren said. The team worked together to place the creature onto a stretcher plate. It was large and heavy, but they managed with effort. As they lifted it, the war dog looked again at Darren, its eyes dim but aware. For the first time, Darren saw something other than fear inside them. He saw a small spark of trust. They carried the creature toward their transport. The battlefield behind them stayed silent, as if it watched their strange rescue with disbelief. None of the humans spoke. They still didn't understand why Darren chose to save a war dog. But Darren knew. Sometimes life, any life, deserved a second chance. And this abandoned creature, once feared by all, had just been given one. Darren stayed beside the war dog as the transport doors closed. The lights inside the ship were dim, and the engines hummed softly, but the creature still flinched at every sound. Its breathing was shallow, and its tail moved only slightly, as if it was trying not to show how much pain it felt. The medics tried to work quickly, scanning the creature's wounds and spraying healing foam over the deep cuts. But even they were nervous. No one wanted to be too close to an alien war dog, even a weak one. It could wake up angry, one medic whispered. It won't, Darren said. He didn't know why he felt so sure, but something about the creature told him it didn't want to fight anymore. It only wanted to survive. As they flew away from the battlefield, the storm outside grew stronger. The transport shook, making the medics tighten their hold on the tools. The creature's eyes opened briefly, glowing in the dark. Darren slowly lifted his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe," he said softly. "Just stay calm." The war dog watched him, then slowly lowered its head again. Even in pain it understood his voice. It trusted him a little more. But the danger was far from over. Halfway to base, the ship alarm began to beep. The pilot's voice crackled through the speakers. "We have a problem. Another ship is following us." Darren felt his heart drop. He rushed to the front, where the pilot pointed at the radar. A large alien ship was closing in fast. It was from the same species that had abandoned the war dog. "They want it back," the pilot guessed. "Or, they want to finish what they started." "Speed up," Darren said quickly. "We're already at maximum," the pilot replied. The enemy ship fired a warning blast. The transport shook violently, knocking Darren off balance. Behind him, the war dog let out a low growl, its instincts reacting to the threat. Darren hurried back to the cargo area. The creature struggled to lift its head, sensing danger even in its weak state. "I know," Darren said. "They're coming. But we're not giving you up." His teammates stared at him like he was crazy. Nobody risked their life for a war dog. These creatures were built for destruction, not friendship. But Darren felt something different. This creature did not choose to be a weapon. It had been trained, used, and abandoned. And now someone wanted it dead. The enemy ship fired again. The transport lights flickered. Sparks jumped from the control panels. Darren grabbed onto the war dog's stretcher plate to keep from falling. One of the engineers shouted, "If they hit us again, we'll go down." Darren looked at the creature. Its eyes glowed brighter, as if it felt the fear inside the humans. But instead of attacking, it pushed its head weakly toward Darren's hand. The gesture was small, soft, almost like a silent request. "Don't leave me." Darren clenched his jaw. "We are not losing it." He rushed to the side panel and grabbed a portable shield generator. He slammed it onto the ship floor and activated it. A protective barrier shimmered around the area where the war dog rested. His teammates stared. "Why protect it? Save yourself." Darren shook his head. "If the enemy wants this creature dead, then saving it matters even more." Before they could argue, the transport jerked violently. The enemy ship had hit them again. Warning alarms screamed. The pilot yelled from the front. "We're losing altitude." The humans braced themselves. Outside the windows, the clouds spun wildly. The war dog whined in fear, trying to stand but collapsing again. Darren held its head gently, keeping it steady. The pilot shouted again. "Brace for crash landing." Everything shook. The floor rattled. The engine screamed. The team grabbed onto whatever they could. Darren shielded the war dog with his body, praying the shield generator would hold. The transport smashed into the ground. Metal screeched. The world tilted. Everything turned white for a moment. When the shaking stopped, Darren opened his eyes slowly. Smoke filled the transport. Panels hung loose. But he was alive. He looked down. The war dog was still breathing under him. The shield generator had protected them. The creature blinked weakly at him, confused but alive. Outside, footsteps approached. Heavy. Intentional. The enemy soldiers had landed and were coming. Darren's team panicked. "We have to run. We can't fight them." Darren stood up, shaky but determined. "We're not running. Not without the creature." "But it can't move." "Then I'll carry it." They stared at him in disbelief. But Darren didn't wait for permission. He unhooked the stretcher ropes and pulled the war dog onto his back as much as he could. The creature was huge, heavy, and injured, but Darren didn't stop. The footsteps grew louder. He stepped toward the broken exit, carrying the creature with everything he had. Humans did not abandon the helpless. Not today. Not ever. The sun rose slowly above the human outpost, turning the cracked ground into a soft golden color. Inside the medical shelter, the alien war dog lay on a thick sleeping pad, breathing slowly but steadily. Its wounds were wrapped in clean bandages, and small machines hummed beside it, checking its heartbeat and healing levels. Darren sat on a metal chair near the creature, leaning forward with tired eyes. He had not slept much since the crash. Every time the war dog shifted or breathed in a strange way, he woke up and checked on it again. No one had asked him to stay, but he felt responsible. He had carried the creature through danger, and now he wanted to make sure it survived. The creature opened its eyes a little. Its gaze moved slowly around the room, then landed on Darren. For a few seconds it didn't move, as if it was trying to understand where it was. "You're safe," Darren said softly. "This is a human base. No one here will hurt you." The war dog blinked, then lowered its head again. But this time it did not close its eyes fully. It kept watching him as if his presence calmed it. Hours passed. The medics entered the room again and checked its wounds. The creature tensed at first, but when Darren spoke to it, its body relaxed. "He listens to you," one medic said, surprised. "I think he trusts me," Darren replied. The medics nodded and left them alone again. The war dog slowly lifted its head, trying to stand, but its legs shook too much. It fell back onto the pad with a soft grunt. Darren moved closer. "Hey, don't rush," he said. "You need time. You're still healing." The creature looked embarrassed, almost ashamed of its weakness. But Darren didn't judge it. He gently placed a bowl of water near its mouth. At first, the creature hesitated, sniffing it carefully. Then it slowly began to drink. Darren smiled. It was a small step, but a very important one. Over the next few days, the war dog showed little signs of improvement. It lifted its head more often. It watched the humans work. It even moved its tail a little when Darren came into the room. Darren spent his breaks there talking to it even if it couldn't talk back. "You know," he said one afternoon, sitting cross-legged on the floor, "I don't think you were ever the monster they said you were. You were just trained that way." The creature slowly reached out its paw, touching the ground closer to his foot. A small gesture. A quiet answer. Then something unexpected happened. One morning, when Darren entered the shelter, he found the war dog standing. Not fully steady, but on all four legs. It looked at him, chest rising proudly as if showing its progress. Darren grinned. "You're really getting better." The war dog took one small step toward him, then another. When it reached him, it lowered its head gently against his arm. Darren froze, surprised. Then he slowly touched the creature's head, feeling the warm, rough fur beneath his fingers. "You're welcome," he whispered. The bond grew stronger by the day. The war dog followed him around the base, limping at first but getting steadier. It stayed near him when he worked on machines. Sometimes it even brought him tools, dropping them beside him with a quiet huff. The other humans watched with wide eyes. "I can't believe it," one engineer said. "That thing listens to you like a trained pet." "It's not a pet," Darren replied. "It's a friend." The war dog let out a soft growl, not an angry one but a protective one. It stood beside Darren like a guard. No one dared to step too close without permission. As days turned into weeks, the creature's strength almost fully returned. Its fur grew back, its wounds closed, and its eyes looked brighter than ever. It seemed happier, lighter, free from fear. The humans even made a special vest for it with healing support and gentle armor. Nothing offensive, nothing violent. Still, something inside the creature lingered. A memory. A pain. Sometimes it stared at the sky, ears twitching as if listening for something from far away. Darren noticed. "Do you miss your old army?" he asked one quiet evening. The war dog lowered its head, but then touched his hand gently with its nose. It was its way of saying no. It didn't miss them. It missed belonging somewhere. And now it felt it had found a new place. A siren suddenly blew across the base. The humans scrambled, grabbing equipment and running to their stations. Darren stood up quickly and the war dog growled, alert and ready. The base commander shouted, "Enemy forces approaching. Prepare defenses." Darren felt a chill in his chest. The enemy was coming again. The same species that had abandoned the war dog, and wanted it dead. The creature moved closer to him, eyes sharp and body steady. This time it was no longer weak. This time it would stand with the humans. The alarm kept ringing across the base as soldiers rushed to their positions. Dust rose around their boots and the loudspeaker repeated the warning again and again. Darren stood still for a moment, trying to understand how the enemy had found them so quickly. He felt the ground vibrate under his feet, and when he looked down he saw the war dog standing beside him, its muscles tense and its eyes sharp. The creature growled, low and steady, not out of fear but out of focus. It could sense danger long before the humans could. Darren placed a hand gently on its shoulder. "I know," he whispered. "They came back for you." The war dog looked up at him for a moment, then turned its gaze toward the horizon. A faint roar echoed through the wind, followed by the distant glow of approaching ships. Enemy scouts. Their engines burned a cold blue light that cut across the sky like sharp blades. Darren ran toward the command center, and the war dog followed closely, almost protecting him as they moved. Inside, the commander and several officers were studying the radar. "3 enemy ships," the commander said. "They want something. And they came fast." Darren took a deep breath. They came for the war dog. The room fell silent. One officer looked at him with disbelief. "Why? They abandoned it. Why risk coming back?" Darren looked at the war dog, whose ears twitched at every sound. Maybe they changed their mind. Or maybe they realized leaving it alive was a mistake. The commander crossed his arms, thinking. Whatever the reason is, we cannot let them take anything from this base. High above them, the enemy ships grew louder as they descended toward the outpost. Dust blew across the ground like a rising storm. Humans ran to their defensive lines, preparing shields and scanners. No one fired yet. The humans never attacked first unless they had to. The war dog stood tall, watching everything. It was no longer the weak, injured creature Darren had rescued. But it wasn't the weapon the enemy wanted either. It was something different now, calmer, wiser, and connected to the humans around it. Darren knelt beside it. "You don't have to fight," he said. "You're free. You can stay behind the walls where it's safe." The war dog understood the words, but it moved forward, closer to the opening gate. It let out a soft, determined sound as if saying no. It would not hide. The enemy ships landed just outside the base, blowing a wave of dust across the defenders. 3 tall alien soldiers stepped forward, wearing armor darker than night. Their eyes glowed faintly as they looked around. One of them shouted, "Return our asset." The humans remained silent. The war dog took a step forward, not aggressive but firm. The alien soldier pointed at it. "That creature is designed for war. It belongs to us." Darren stepped in front of the war dog. "It doesn't belong to anyone. You left it to die." The alien tilted its head. "Weakness must be removed. But if it survived, it has value again. Return it." The war dog let out a deep growl. The aliens looked surprised. Creatures like it were never expected to resist commands. The base commander walked forward and spoke loudly, "We do not hand over anyone who seeks protection." The alien soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons. The air grew heavy as both sides waited for the other to act. Darren whispered to the war dog, "Stay calm. Don't attack. Let's show them you're not a weapon anymore." But the war dog wasn't preparing to attack. Its stance was protective, its eyes watching the aliens, yet something had changed. It wasn't angry. It wasn't scared. It was choosing. One alien took a step forward as if testing the creature's reaction. The war dog moved in front of Darren, blocking him with its body. The aliens froze. Darren gasped quietly. "You're protecting me." The aliens stared at the scene in disbelief. A war dog protecting a human was impossible. Their training methods didn't allow loyalty toward outsiders. This creature was breaking every rule they had ever enforced. The alien leader spoke again, but his voice carried frustration now. "Creatures like that do not choose humans. You manipulated it." "No," Darren said. "We helped it. That's something you never tried." Silence spread across the field like a slow wave. Behind Darren, more humans arrived. They weren't aiming weapons. They were simply standing together, side by side, forming a line behind the war dog. It was a quiet message. They would not surrender it. The alien soldiers looked at each other, unsure. The war dog stepped forward again, but this time it raised its head high, not as a beast made for war, but as a being making its own choice. It let out a powerful but controlled sound, half growl, half roar, telling everyone what it wanted. It had chosen the humans. The alien leader stared, confused and angry. "This is unacceptable. That creature belongs to our army. It follows only our commands." Darren shook his head. "Not anymore." The alien soldiers hesitated, their weapons lowering slightly. They had never seen a war dog act with independent will. It made them uncertain. A long moment passed. Finally, the alien leader turned away. "This is not over," he said before stepping back. "But we will not fight today." They boarded their ships and lifted off into the sky, leaving only dust swirling behind them. The humans slowly lowered their guard. Darren exhaled, his heart steadying. He looked at the war dog, who had not moved even after the danger passed. "You stood with us," Darren whispered. The war dog pressed its head gently against his chest, a gesture of loyalty and trust. The threat had returned. But so had the creature's courage. The sky slowly cleared after the enemy ships vanished, leaving the base quiet again. Humans stood in small groups, talking softly about what had happened. Some were still confused, others shocked, but many were simply amazed. No one had ever seen a war dog stand with humans before. The war dog stayed close to Darren, watching everyone carefully. Its body relaxed little by little as the danger faded, but its eyes never left the horizon, just in case the enemy returned. Darren reached out and touched its fur gently. "You did something incredible today," he said. "You didn't have to, but you chose to." The creature lowered its head as if acknowledging his words. It had once been trained to follow commands without thinking, but now it was deciding things on its own. The humans around them noticed this and approached slowly, unsure of how close they could get. One engineer asked, "Is it safe now?" Darren smiled. "It's always been safe. We just didn't understand it before." The war dog looked at the engineer, then sat down calmly beside Darren. Its large tail moved across the ground in a slow, peaceful motion. The engineer relaxed a bit. Over the next few days, everything changed around the base. People began to trust the war dog. They offered food, cleaned its resting place, and smiled when it walked by. The creature responded with gentle sounds, small tail wags, and patient eyes. It didn't act like a weapon anymore. It acted like a partner. The base commander even approached Darren one morning with a small badge in his hand. "This is for the creature," the commander said. "A symbol that it belongs here." Darren looked at the badge. It had the Human Alliance symbol on it, a simple shape that meant protection and unity. He fastened it onto the special vest the humans had made for the war dog. The creature looked down at it and touched it gently with its nose before lifting its head high with pride. Later that day, Darren took the creature outside the base walls for the first time since the rescue. The world felt bigger and safer now. The war dog walked beside him with a calm, confident step. Birds flew overhead, and the wind brushed across the grass. For a moment, it didn't feel like a place of war at all. "You know," Darren said, "if someone saw you now, they wouldn't believe you ever belonged to them." The war dog made a soft sound, something like a quiet sigh. It felt free in this open space. But suddenly it stopped walking. Darren turned and saw its ears rise, listening to something only it could hear. "What is it?" Darren asked. The war dog stood perfectly still, then slowly looked in the direction of the enemy's territory. Its eyes were calm, not afraid. After a moment, it looked back at Darren and moved closer, pressing its head against his arm. Darren understood. It wasn't worried. It wasn't expecting danger. It was simply remembering what it had left behind. A life of orders. A life of fear. A life of being treated as a tool. Now it was choosing something new. "You're not alone anymore," Darren said softly. "You're with us." When they returned to the base, a small group of children from the nearby settlement came to see the war dog. They had heard stories and wanted to know if the creature was real. The war dog lowered itself carefully so it would not scare them. The children slowly touched its fur, amazed at how gentle it was. One child giggled. "It likes us." The war dog wagged its tail happily and Darren smiled. "Yes, it does." The creature had gone from being abandoned and unwanted to becoming part of a community. It had found something stronger than orders, kindness. Something deeper than fear, trust. And something none of its creators expected, loyalty. As night fell, the base became quiet again. Darren sat outside with the war dog resting beside him. The stars lit the sky, creating a soft silver glow over the land. The war dog stared up at the stars, its chest rising and falling slowly. Darren watched the creature and felt something warm in his heart. "You know," he said, "people will talk about what you did today. They'll say humans saved a war dog. But I think, you saved us too." The war dog turned its head and looked at him with gentle eyes. Then it placed its paw slowly over Darren's boot, a small but powerful gesture of trust and belonging. The wind blew softly. The base lights flickered in the distance. Everything felt peaceful. The creature no longer thought of itself as a weapon, a tool, or a forgotten asset. It was something new. A partner. A friend. A part of the human family. It had found a new meaning of loyalty, one built not from fear but from choice. And it would stand with the humans not because it was ordered to, but because it wanted to.